This service is all about praising God, thanking God for his goodness, and just to have Rich be able to stand up here and sing, it's just a testament to his love for the Lord after everything that he's been through. Just amazing that God gave him the strength to sing for us from his heart. So I invited for our first speaker this morning to give testimony, his wife. She's been through a lot in the last number of years with Rich. Our lives can just suddenly change. They didn't expect to be smitten with Parkinson's. They didn't expect this to happen. They were cruising along, fine, enjoying retirement, and all of a sudden, your life changes. It could happen to any of us here at any moment. Our life could just suddenly change. We could stroke, we could be in a car accident, we can have some debilitating disease, some heart problem, something that's happening that we're not even aware of just yet. It could change our whole life in a day's time. So, Roseanne, I'd like you to speak. Are you ready? All right.
He gives me permission. Oh, praise the Lord.
Did not affect your humor, I can see.
Yeah.
Rich.
I just want to say, I wasn't planning on saying this, but because of what happened here with his singing, his spirit is so in love with the Lord still, but his body can't do what it wants to do, and it can't be what he wanted to be. I just want to say this testimony I'm going to give you this morning is not about me, but it's about a God that is so magnanimous that we can't contain him. The geniuses of centuries past cannot contain all that and who he is.
Right.
But yet, he is so personal. He is so intimate. Our God knows where we are. I think of Thomas, doubting Thomas. He had said to the disciples when they said Jesus had risen, he's off. Unless I put my hand in his side and see the nail prints in his hands, I don't believe. And then you have Nathaniel, who was investigating Jesus. And Philip had told him all about, come see Jesus. And Jesus says, there's an Israelite with no guile. And Nathaniel said, how do you know me? He goes, I saw you under the fig tree. Our God sees us. Our God hears our words. Our God knows our thoughts. Our God knows where each and every one of you is today and what your need is. And I'm here to tell you about that God and how wonderful he is. I have notes here too, Jason, because I'll forget what I'm going to say too. But I want to tell you a little bit about us. So many of you don't know very much about us. And when I speak from here, I'm speaking, but I'm speaking for the both of us. This is our testimony. We're married 44 years. We have 4 beautiful children. We have 14 wonderful grandchildren. Before we were married, Rich ministered and itinerized all around Long Island. I know you probably had no idea I was from New York, right? He wrote songs and played his guitar and sang around. He was also a youth pastor. We both sang in a gospel group called the Gospel Singers. We sang on the steps of City Hall of New York City for Police Appreciation Day. Rich was in a gospel quartet, sometimes a trio, called the Sojourners, and sang all over Greater Long Island. And then he went into full-time ministry as the associate pastor and youth pastor in New York. And then he became the senior pastor in a church in Florida and also in South Carolina, where we ministered. Our 4 children were very heavily involved in ministry. They all played the piano. They sang. They helped Rich lead worship. He was so vibrant. He was so energetic, so active. He would preach Sunday morning, 2 services. He would preach in the evening. He would lead the worship. He was just used of God, and that's our story. That was our life. We had a wonderful ministry. We had a wonderful family life. And then we noticed his hand shaking. And we moved to Pittsburgh to be with our children in January 2005, and he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. But the past 3 or 4 years has been like a tsunami of that hit us with his physical. His condition worsened, his fatigue increased, his cognitive impairment was increasing, his shaking was uncontrollable. He'd lay down in bed and try to sleep, and this is what his muscles would just contract constantly, and his legs would just thrash all over the bed. And he felt like he was being tortured. He felt like he had 100-pound weights on his legs. And at the same time, he developed prostate cancer, melanoma, which is the worst of the skin cancers. He had REM sleep disorder. And then he had DBS, which is deep brain stimulation surgery, where they drill holes through your skull while you're awake, with his teeth chattering, and they filter wires down in his brain, around his ear, put a battery in here, and that helped the shaking to stop. But unfortunately, he got a severe infection after that, and which almost, the infection was here, and it almost went all the way up to his brain, nearly killing him. And because they had to take the battery out, his Parkinson's became 10 times worse, and he was completely debilitated. And he developed blood clots, 2 sizable blood clots in his lungs, and then he had 2 blocked arteries. So, of course, this was having a great effect on me as well. I was thrust into the role of a caretaker, and it was like becoming a mother all over again in the level of care that it required. And not quite the same as when you're in the 20s, when you're 20s and being a mom. This baby's not 7 pounds, and this baby is sick. And myself having had 2 neck surgeries and constant back pain and knee pain, it was tough being in the hospitals, the cold nights, the emergency room visits, and tests of every kind, medications and treatments. He's got about 9 different doctors that we attend. I was exhausted. I was frightened. I was frustrated. I was unprepared. But God. How when you just drop everything into his lap, how he comes through for us. You just lean on him and he comes through. I mean, even from pulling up to McDonald's and them saying, your lunch is free. Why? Why is my lunch free? Just because it is. And getting a coffee on my way to the hospital. Your coffee is free. And just little touches like that you knew God was with you and God was watching you and involved in everything. But the best thing he did was he gave us you. He gave us this body that has been the most compelling demonstration and display of God's love to us. This church has loved us beyond natural human love. I've never seen anything like it. Truly the picture of God's love in action. And let me just say on behalf of Rich and I, thank you, all of you who have been there for us and have helped us. It has just been such a blessing to our lives. The ladies helped us pack up. We got to move again. Oh, yeah, I don't like moving. We have to move again. But ladies came and helped pack up my house in a day like you couldn't believe. We have known such extreme generosity by different ones. We even have our own little private angel that I won't mention Linda's name, because there's so many names to mention who at the drop of a dime would just run and help us no matter what we needed. The men in this church, how they have helped us tirelessly day after day after day, sweating and straining, and then doing it with joy. Even yesterday as water is falling on Jay's head, they're all cracking jokes. And it's just, our gratitude is beyond description. But as if that wasn't enough, about 6 months ago, our perfect little life took yet another painful twist, and we had a serious family matter. But God continues to provide clear direction over and over again, even through words spoken from our pastor. And the Lord just kept telling me, Roseanne, be still. Don't do anything. Be still, be still, be still. And in every direction, whether it was a devotional on an email, whether it was Cheryl's devotionals or the preached word or songs that came on the radio, God is in control, be still. I went in, had to get a new cell phone. I went into AT&T, and there was 3 or 4 ladies working, sales reps working there, and the woman that helped me, I noticed writing on her arm, and I says, oh, what's on your arm? And she holds her arm up and says, be still. And I just start crying, and she's looking, why are you crying? And I told her the whole testimony, how God has been with us through everything. And God just keeps saying, trust me, wait on me. Let me handle this. You don't have to handle this. And there's such peace. You still have your joy in spite of what you're going through. There's joy unspeakable and full of glory. How could you explain it? And I said, but Lord, now what is my purpose? What am I to do now? We're stuck in the house. We can't go out. We can't hardly minister. And he said, you find your ministry in whatever capacity you are in. whether it's the doctor's office, we leave books, we leave tracts, and we hear back, oh, did you leave a book? That book meant so much to me. I sent it to my cousin. It blessed me. No matter what capacity you're in, no matter where you are in your life, God can use you, because Satan would rather discourage you. He would rather make you feel like you're useless. He would rather to make you depressed. But if you put it in the hands of the Lord, he can use you, no matter what you're going through. Like Stephen, he saw Jesus at the right hand of the Father while they were stoning him. We can see the Lord, and no matter what we're going through. He brought people back into our lives, a cousin who was in the military who we hadn't seen for years. We had lost contact with, who has come into our life and has been such a strength to us. It's unbelievable how the Lord has done this. And this move, we knew it would be physically and financially impossible, but no, it's not impossible with God. And I want to say one last thing. God has his own time clock. God doesn't move when we say he should move. He moves when he says it is time. I think of Joseph. He was sold as a slave. He was falsely accused, and he was imprisoned. The fulfillment of his dream took 23 years. Our timing is not God's timing. His will is what we need to rely on. His will, not our timing, what we want. He explicitly kept telling me, be still, Roseanne. And he's done exceedingly abundantly above all that we could possibly think or ask. And on the day of our closing, we bought the house. Sometimes realtors will give you a bouquet of flowers or, something as a little gift. And we found this little package on the table on the closing last week, whatever it was. And that's what our realtor gave us. That's what our realtor gave us. Does God speak? Oh, yes, he does. If you listen, God will provide a way. God will make your yoke able to bear. I love you all so much.
Well done. You picked a good one, Rich. Alice, would you come up here just for a bit? She's had some kind of an interesting testimony for us, so I thought that it's good. You did this once before, I think, Alice, but you're not nervous, are you? Oh, okay.
Good morning. Most of you might think that I'm up here because of recent health issues, but I'm not up here for that. I'm up here because God has just brought a joy into my life of connecting with people one-on-one. And one of those just extraordinary things that he's done is to bring a young man into my life who is here this morning. And his name is Brian, and he's sitting right here. And I did not know that Brian was going to come until last night, and just how the Lord has just, through him, has encouraged me, because my heart has been that the youth, especially men, that God needs to raise up godly men to be leaders. And I see from my relationship with Brian, where we connected last year at the University of Pittsburgh campus where I work, and at the Hillman Library, he was coming out and he said, I'm late for Bible study. And so that kind of started our conversation. The next time he would come in and I'd ask him about, his Bible study, and he started sharing, and we started sharing things about the Lord, and our hearts have been bound together. And I just can't say how much the Lord has just, my heart is full just seeing what God is doing in this young man's life, and how I can be a sounding board for him, and he doesn't know how much he encourages me in the Lord to see that the Lord is still moving, and what a joy it is. I mean, Terry McGuire, he's witnessed Brian on campus, coming up to him out from nowhere and just saying, can I help pass out tracts with you? And just, Brian probably is just probably not expecting me to share some of these things, but you don't know how the Lord has his hand on this young man, and how he's drawing him, how he's drawn me, and how we need to pray for the young men that God can use them and to stand up for him and to be a witness, and that all is not lost, because the Lord brought Brian into my life, and to give me that witness that he's still working. You know, at the University of Pittsburgh, where it's so dark, and here this young man who gets saved a couple years ago as a freshman, and just on fire for the Lord, and how he's drawing people, and just be praying for Brian, and just that the Lord still encourages him. This young man that he's with, who brought here today, Brian met him, I think, at the grocery store a few months ago, and they connected. And Brian calls me and says, Alice, I'm going to bring him to church, to your church with me. This young man is just, God. It's God that's working, and it's just, I just want to share with you what God is doing with a young man's life and how he's touching him. And how he can encourage all of us, how God can encourage all of us, and the small part that we have, how we can pour ourselves into young people and to be an encouragement to them, and to be a hope, and to see the hope that God is giving us through them. So I just wanted to share that this morning. And also, just how God has touched me and just blessed me to be up here and to be pain-free right now, and just how he's moved, and just give him the glory of everything that he's worked out in my life. So that's all I have to say today.
Beautiful. Okay, Brian, you got a lot to live up to there. So, you live for Jesus now, okay? That's hard down there. Pitt is a dark place. It was dark when I went there, and that's ancient history now. That's the early 70s. But Alice will be a good support up there. But we want her to retire because she's supposed to be helping me here at the church, singing and so forth. So, Well, the next lady that I'm going to ask to come up is my daughter. And she was here from the beginning when we started the church with 9 people, and she was a year and a half old. And we were down at the old chapel there, and I still have a picture of her painting. She was painting some of the drywall that we put up. We didn't know much in those days. In fact, we put drywall up on the ceiling of this old chapel building. There was no ceiling. And so we had to have a lot of help, and God had a lot of mercy on us, truly. But Laura, I love you, honey. Why don't you come and tell us what the Lord's doing with you?
Well, normally I'm at a microphone every day saying to 200 plus kindergarten first graders, kindergarten first grade, hands up, close your mouths. And I do that for 30 minutes every day. So it's nice to come up and everyone's already quiet. So as my father said, I am Pastor's daughter. I am also Dan's wife, Tim and Joel's mom, and most recently, one of my identifiers is I am Becky's younger sister. When I came back from college, I went away to Christian college, and Dan and I had been dating for about 6 months. He had been in the church 2 years, and a lady came up to me and said, "Oh, you must be Dan's girlfriend." I was stunned. I've been here my whole life. Went away to college, and I'm a nobody. But that's God's way of keeping you humble, and I've had plenty of that over the years to keep me humble. So when my dad texted me, I thought, wow, I haven't had anything like earth-shattering happen this year. Boy, I wonder why he chose me. And so I knew it was the Lord. And so as I was pondering it over, I thought, well, Dan and I had started a tradition with our boys many years ago where on Thanksgiving Day, at some point during the busyness of that day, we sit down, the 4 of us, and we write a list of what we are thankful for. And so I thought I would bring you into my living room today, and this year, instead of me scrambling in the middle of cooking things and writing my list is done. Dan and the boys do not have their list done. And Dan's out in foundations, and both boys are out of town. So I'm letting you get a sneak peek of what I will be sharing with them on Thursday. So first of all, I am thankful for the godly, sacrificial upbringing that I had. Many of you probably don't realize that in those early years, my parents were dirt poor. And I didn't know that growing up. They never complained about the sacrifices that they made being in ministry. I wasn't aware that I was always wearing hand-me-downs, and I didn't get the nice hand-me-downs. But I didn't know. I didn't care. I had a very happy, blessed childhood being raised in this church, many, many fond memories. One of which was being able to attend a Christian school in kindergarten through 12th grade, which is a blessing that I will always be thankful for. And growing up, I always either wanted to be a nurse or be a teacher. But then I quickly realized that I couldn't really handle puke or blood or all those things, so maybe I should be a teacher. Incidentally, I deal with all three on a daily basis anyhow. But God gave the grace to handle that. So I went off to Christian college. Of course, my dad's goal was for me to meet a man while I was there. That was kind of my goal as well. And the secondary was to get a degree and become a teacher. So God has a sense of humor because I did not meet my husband at Christian college. God brought him here instead. And my mother will tell you that that is okay because she didn't want me to move away. So had I met a man in Florida, I probably wouldn't have been back in Pittsburgh. So God sent Dan to this church, and the rest is history on that. I'll get back to him later. Really actually kind of back to him already. Of course, I taught for a couple years, and then we started our family. I continued to do a little bit of volunteer work at the school, but I was a stay-at-home mom, and it is not something that I take lightly. I currently work with 2 young mothers and see their frazzling of being all day with kids at school and wanting to get home to their kids, and sometimes having to leave because their young children get sick. And I am grateful that I had the opportunity to be at home with my boys and give them that foundation. I work with kids every day that I can see the effects of not having that early development of a parent who spent that time with them day in and day out. And I'm working with many of those kids and seeing the effects of not having the influence of a mother day in and day out in those formative years. So I'm thankful that I was able to do that. I'm thankful for the privilege to teach. I have not had much trouble in my life. Certainly I've had trials and things that are challenging, but I can tell you that over 27 years of teaching, I have dealt with heartbreaking circumstances. And first year of teaching, I remember having these very sweet kids who had been abused by their grandfather. And that was a shock. That was the first time I confronted that, and it was really hard. And then Dan and I did bus ministry for many years, and just seeing what children grow up with and seeing the heartbreak. And certainly when we had our school, we saw those situations with many of our students. And so I don't take lightly that God gave me the ability to be a teacher. And, you know, when our school closed, I went back and forth, was thinking of getting something part-time while my boys were in junior high and high school. And it always came back to teaching. That's where God has brought me time and time again. And most recently, I ventured a little outside of my comfort zone. I was looking around last November, and God placed a school district I'd never heard of in my life, and something told me to apply to it. I wasn't really keen on necessarily going into a public school, but I applied, and I've always thrown out that Gideon fleece, Lord, just don't let me hear back on it. And I didn't. And usually I just walk away. That was God's will. Something pricked me. Reach out and email the man whose name was on it, not realizing it was actually the superintendent. And he basically coached me on the things I needed to turn in that weren't listed, but that's a story for another day. And so I applied, and eventually I got the job in February. And I now am out in the Connellsville area in a very rural, poor district with kids with every day it's a new story that a teacher brings to me, because the teachers are realizing that I'm different and that my heart is for these kids and I love these kids. And so day in and day out, I find a different story about a different little kindergartner or first grader and the terrible lives that they have. And I'm just amazed that they can still have a smile on their face. And so I work with kids who struggle with math. I pull them out in my classroom. And so each day I pray that the 30 to 40 minutes that I see those kids, that it will be different and I can show them the love of Jesus each day. I've now developed a rapport pretty much with the whole school. I walk through the halls and kids stop me. Mrs. Mercick, are you taking me today? And I like to believe that it's not for the sticker or the piece of candy or the Oriental Trading toy, that these kids, almost similar to our Operation Christmas Child, I've taught for many years and had kids turn up their noses to prizes I give. These kids are happy with a little plastic frog that costs less than a penny because they have nothing. Many of them are dirty and from horrible backgrounds. Every day I walk through the hall, and one little girl in particular stops me, Mrs. Mercick, am I going to see you today? And she gives me a hug. Her mother is in jail. She's a meth addict. She's living with an aunt and uncle. A lot of times the people they're placed with, it's just another abusive situation. I can only shudder to think of what she's seen and what has happened to her in her short little 5 years. And she's already a little hardened. You can see that little bit of hardness, and it's sad. Very, very sad. But I'm thankful that the Lord has given me an opportunity to be a blessing to these kids day in and day out. Moving on my list. I'm thankful for all of you. I'm thankful for my church family. If you saw in the bulletin, we just completed Operation Christmas Child. I've been doing it for over 20 years. I started it with my boys. I did it when we had the school. And then a friend of mine at one of my other schools encouraged me to open it up to the church and said, oh, your church people will love it. And so I did it. And every year I am impressed. I mean, I know a lot of you are going through hard times right now with inflation and everything. And I thought, if we get 50 boxes, I would be happy. And for us to have gotten 130 boxes from our small church. A couple years ago, somebody said to me, you would be amazed at the big mega churches that sometimes they send less boxes than a little small church like yours, because the people that have the most don't always want to give of it. And so I'm thankful for my church family who has been behind me all these years in many, many ways and helped me out. I could name you, but I'll forget somebody. So I'm just putting you all in there in one fell swoop. You're on my list every year on my thankful list. I am going to give a shout out to our youth group. Can you all raise your hands? Our youth group, don't be shy. Former youth group, they raised their hand too. A few years back, we were approached to take over the youth group. Dan and I had done Awana for many, many years, but he had started off when he first came to the church helping in the youth group, and always kind of wanted to get back to that. And I have to say, really, since COVID, we really bonded together during that time as a youth group. We started off having Zoom meetings, and then when we got back together, it was just this tight-knit group. We just had this bond. And I'm just amazed to see we've had weeks where we only had 5 kids in youth group when Dan and I first started. It's not about the numbers. It's who God brings. And we're now up to, the other night, we had 15 teens. And it's just amazing to see them learning the Word of God, wanting to learn their verses, and having good questions. And then to see them go on. One of our girls that just graduated is currently covering me in Foundations, Courtney. And Lamaya is going to be serving here shortly as well. And that is our hope, is to build up a younger group that will serve alongside of us. And lastly is my family. My in-laws, including both of my brother-in-laws that are still with us. My brother-in-law, Kirk, was to speak today. He is fighting cancer. That was very hard to receive that news. Dan lost his other brother to cancer last year, and so that was tough. Kirk is, I'm sorry, Jason, but he is my favorite brother-in-law. You're second on the list. But Kirk has been a constant in our family. I never had outlaws. I had in-laws, not outlaws. My my mother-in-law and father-in-law were wonderful to me over the years that they were with us. I'm thankful for my nieces and nephews. Of course, I mentioned being thankful for my parents and the godly influence that they've always had over my life, and the way that they raised me to love and serve Christ. I'm thankful for my sister. I'm thankful that she is actually younger than me. I know that surprises all of you. And she gave me 3 beautiful practice grandchildren. My dad said shortly after Bella had been around, started calling me Grandma Laura. I'm thankful for my boys, who in varying ways shouldn't even be here. We almost lost Tim when he was born. It was a very close call. Joel has had varying ways that we have almost lost him, including this summer when he was at officer candidate school. He called us, and he was very, very sick. We were almost positive that he had pneumonia. And God got him through that, and it was nothing short of a miracle that he made it through there. And then lastly, my best friend and my husband. I hit the jackpot with Dan. He has been with me through all of these years. We brought him into this church and put him in all this chaos. And then we put him in our family and put a lightning rod on him. And he has graciously borne it all of these years. Many disappointments, many things we've gone through, and he has always been strong. He has been a leader. He was an amazing father. Many days he got up very early to go into work so that our boys had him at every sports event. That might seem like a little thing. And I would say, Dan, you don't need to come to every game. The boys understand. But it was important to him. And he would work those long hours. And when our school closed and we had moved the boys out, he was driving into the town and then driving out to meet us at all of Joel's games, then driving back home every night to do it all over the next day. I have watched him minister to many of you. He has a very deep heart. He is an immovable wall. When he believes in something, he stands strong. And I admire that in him. I am not always good about that. But when he stands up for something, he knows he believes is right. He stands for it. And I'm thankful that he has been my husband. I watched him care for his parents for 10 years. His dad had Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and he faithfully went to see his dad, helped his mom over all those years. And losing his parents was very devastating to him in 2005. And I saw him in a very different light over that year. But he pulled himself together, missed very little work during that very difficult time, and was the man that we needed him to be, and the father and the husband through all of those difficult times. And so I thank the Lord for giving me him and for the way we minister together. We are truly a team. And last is my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, because none of this is possible without him. I have come across many people who've been in ministry. When I was in college, I was amazed at the pastor's kids I ran across and the bitterness that they had. And I have always said, there's good and bad times, and no matter where God places you, but you are to be strong through him, and being bitter gets you nowhere. If I can encourage all of you, something that I have done in counseling teens and adults over the years, we can all go through very hard times, and it can be very easy to get wrapped up in our own problems and our own selves. That if you will stop every day and you will say, ask the Lord to show you that person who has it worse than you do, you will always find that person who has it worse than you do, and realize that you have nothing to complain about, because God is good, and all the time, God is good.
Well, there's a story about Laura. We did send her to college. I have to admit, paid the tuition so that she would find a Christian man. I really wasn't interested in the degree. It cost a lot of money, and we didn't have much money, but I thought it would be worth it. So the Lord has a sense of humor. He brings Dan to the church. Dan gets saved, and I'm thinking to myself, why did I pay all that tuition money? And my second thought is, shouldn't Dan have to pay that back to me? That's my... But we are delighted. I'm delighted in both of my daughters and my sons-in-law. They're the servants of the Lord. I've said it many times, one of the qualifications to preach the gospel is you have to have your family in order. And I've never doubted my family is in order. I've never had that to worry about. I would step down from ministry if it were not the case. So I so appreciate them. And they've had to deal with some difficult things, I'm sure. But God has been so good. All right. Now I got Jim Kohler here. And Jim is not short-winded. But he has a lot to say. Come on up here, Jim. What a testament to what the Lord did in saving this guy. Good. You all right?
Yeah, I'm getting slower and slower, man. I'm going to be, God willing, I'm going to be 72 in January. Ooh. And like somebody said up here before me here, well, as you get old, in fact, it was Pastor, you get old, man. I used to, over a year ago, I had to put down my last dog, loaded with cancer. I had to put him down. But for the, I guess, 6 months prior to having him going down, there were so many times, the majority of times when I'd get up out of my chair, my recliner, I'd make noises, and he'd just look at me, and I could tell he's wondering, man, what's wrong with him, and that's a dog. But anyhow, he was responding to, that kind of stuff, man. It's comical. But what did I want to start with? And he's true, he's right. Where's the blinking light? Was that real? Okay, I got you. He sent me a text saying, if you get close to going over time, a light will start blinking. I'm just glad it's not this one, But, there was something I wanted to lead off with, man, and I can't even get to it. I'll get there. I was sitting there listening to other stories, man. That's what you call a soft heart. Given freely from God. And it wasn't always this way. I'll get myself together. Don't worry. Or he'll help me get together. I remember the last time, or the only other time, that I was up at this podium speaking. I had just passed the 6-month point of the overdose drug death of my youngest daughter. And the time came, I just collapsed emotionally, and I cried like a baby here and couldn't stop. It seemed like forever. But I needed to do that. Now I remember what I wanted to open with. You ready? If you're listening, say amen. Ooh, somebody got some competition. There might have to be another associate here. Jim, you might be moving up. Ah, my. Boy, this will subside. Number 2, what I wanted to do with my sister and her family are here today for the first time ever. And yeah, I'm not, no, wait 1 minute, please. I'm not looking to start a new tradition here, but I think it might be really nice. I don't want to name, I can, Taylor, Mary, and Brian. But instead of that, the last name will probably suffice. And I know some of you didn't think I knew what that word meant. But what I want to say is, how about on the count of 3, just say, welcome McGinley's. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to ask them to stand up, but whoever wants to following afterwards, please introduce yourself. Boy, it's something. Mary asked me, I guess when we got here today, how did you find his church? And they actually live right next door to where the pastor used to live, down on Edgewood. Oh, and they're having a beef stew luncheon after this, whoever was. And Deli's going to bring the cornbread. She'll kill me. She makes a dynamite beef stew. By the way, I'm ready for some more. You got it in the fridge? I'll be right back. I'm going to walk out of here. Oh, goodness. But she asked me, how in the world did you find this place? Because when you think about it, coming off of Churchill Road, coming on Curry, and then going up this crazy driveway, to this beautiful setting, an incredible set of buildings, you'd never dream it was there, here. Never dream. But that's how we found it. And we were drawn here by a couple who used to belong here. They moved and they no longer belong to this church. But me and my youngest daughter, who passed, we had an Amish furniture store right down at Route 30 and 48. And they came in one day. That's right. And I had something from Charles Stanley Scotch taped up on one of the walls. And the guy, the husband, as he was walking by it, he took a look and started reading it. And sure enough, the magic started. He asked me a question. I'd ask him a couple, and back and forth. And he said, and at that time, I wasn't attending any churches at all. I actually began my true faith journey down on the north side with Rock, who's no longer there. He retired, but anyhow, he actually baptized me. And Pastor baptized my youngest daughter. But we got to talking. He said, man, you ought to come up and check us out. I said, okay, what the heck? And at the time, like I said, I wasn't going to no church. So here, my daughter and I started coming. And sure enough, we fit right. We fit right. And this, to begin with, down on the north side, you went by the NIV, not the King James. And as with everybody, I don't think anybody just jumps into the King James. It's like Shakespeare speech or talk or language, But little by little, I started to pick it up. And I actually have my Bible with me today. I'd put notes in from what he was teaching on that given day or night. And sure enough, I started to remember these things. Occasionally, when I'd run into somebody else and would start talking back and forth about Scripture, and every now and then I'd say, you know what, that's Romans or whatever. And it was an incredible thing. But I'm sure we all, to some extent, grow like that in the Word, because the more you read, the more you hear, especially from a teacher like Pastor LaPetra, you're going to pick some stuff up. And I did. It's a great story. I'm trying to think. I'm going to give you a little idea. With the blinking light, could you please give me 1 minute early so I know I have a minute? Please. But I'm going to say Mary. I'm going to say I, because I'm the one that's up here. But put it this way, we come from a family that was just riddled and just crazy with alcohol and drugs, really, really messed up. My mother, I don't know if she ever drank anything, but she loved pills, man. She loved them pills. And it actually took her to the place, and I know a lot of people don't understand this. I don't want to fail to mention either that as far as 12-step programs, a lot of people that don't have any real personal experience with that, with 12-step fellowships, really don't understand, or know for that matter, that there are a lot of believers that go to those meetings. And little by little, I would run into some, and they would witness to me incredibly. And at first, if any of you guys ever, or ladies, ever thought or seen that guy years ago, he was downtown. He was always this big pole. It was probably not 10 feet, probably an 8-foot pole. And he had a sign on it. It was huge, and it was scripture, And whenever I'd see him, I'd think to myself, what a nut, man. But don't you know, I ended up voluntarily reading that stuff in my Bible, out of my Bible. So, in other words, I was foreign to it, wasn't looking to get into it, but little by little, people rubbed up against me and vice versa that let some information and truly spiritual knowledge seep into this hard head of mine. And the ball started rolling, And it's an incredible thing to be affiliated. I actually, right now, I was blessed, man, to have the willingness, all that stuff. There's a place down on Carson Street, the Anala Recovery, it's called, Recovery Center. And they have 12-step meetings there, too. And on Saturdays at 11:30, they have a Psalms, it's called Psalms of the Heart meeting. And a couple of my buddies said, man, you ought to come on down there and check it out. So I started to, and it's about the Psalms. It's about the Psalms. And I went, and I was like, that's great. But what about the Proverbs? What about that? Because these people, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm blessed every time I'm there myself. But I'm talking about at least half of the people that usually show up on a regular basis are from the Salvation Army. They're down and out, man. They come down there, and that's what they need, because as before I got sober in 81, I made just about all bad decisions. My thinking, how's Romans say it? With your mind, renewing your mind. I needed my mind to be renewed, And these guys know it. They're hungry, and they just open up like unbelievable, man. And it's a beautiful thing. And it all goes back to my training. Don't get me wrong. When I was down at Allegheny Center Alliance, when I went in there, I was on fire. I joined the choir. I was on fire. I was moving. And the Holy Spirit, I was thinking about this the other day. I used to drive into that parking lot, because we always had to get there like a half hour early to practice. And we'd have Wednesday night practice. But on Sunday, on my way in, man, as soon as I hit that, not curb, but the little hump going up into the parking lot, I just throw that cigarette out, because the Holy Spirit, I got to the point where hearing, listening, and reading about this being the temple of the Holy Spirit, and to be, amen, and to keep on putting that in me, and I didn't enjoy it. I wake up in the morning, that's the first thing I did was light up a cigarette. And I mean, in other words, what I'm saying is I never thought I'd get away from those things. And it took some time, don't get me wrong. I had to be convicted quite a few times, to get away from that. But man, I don't miss it. I don't. It's really the change that comes about is what I'm getting at as a result of solid teaching of the Word of God. It's powerful. No matter what you've been into, if you're new, like I'm going to steal a phrase from 12-step programs. If you're new, keep coming back. This church right here, and that book right there, these Bibles, will get you on a journey that you just can't, you could not foresee, you can't even imagine. I mean, every now and then I get this close, and sometimes I blow it. Not too often anymore, though. I don't even swear anymore. And I'm the kind of person that, as of even the first time I got drunk, I loved the way it made me feel. I progressed, as so many people do, to intravenous using, and that's nothing compared to being able to live clean, live straight, You don't have to mess with that. You really don't. It's him. It's him. Last thing I just remembered, I do want to say, and the light isn't even blinking yet, but, I'm sorry. I was married. We got married. We were like two, like two, what they say, peas in a pod or whatever, something like that. We loved to get high. We ended up, she got pregnant. We got married. We ended up with 2 daughters. 2. And the older one, she lives out near Philly now. And she's saved. She knows that Christ came and died and rose again, and he's coming back. She knows that. At times, she doesn't give you the impression that she's on fire, but she knows the truth. And that's what sets us free, as the book says, She's quite a lady. Oh, here we go. I had always been I love money. Not so much anymore. And I'm in condition now, financially, that I've, never been in before. I've been up and down a number of times. I filed bankruptcy twice. But I was always a hustler. When I was a kid, shoveling snow, delivering newspapers, I ended up ultimately, a group of guys in my neighborhood, Garfield, got into this thing about getting a van and driving around and selling carpet out of the back of the truck, And we would drive to Syracuse, sell a load on the way up and then stay over, load up again up there and drive back. And I actually even got to the point, does anybody remember People's Express Airlines? You do? Okay. You ever use it? Yeah. This was an airline. Instead of driving to Syracuse, I would take that, to begin with, the first time I did it, when I was done working, I loaded back up in Syracuse and drove to the airport and then took the People's Express. How it worked was you paid them cash on board. Right? Remember? And it was $35 to go to Syracuse, New York. Now, you did have to go, their hub was in Newark, New Jersey. You had to stop in there. But, hey, this stuff saved you 6 hours of driving. You were ready to work when you got up there, It was a beautiful thing. And I ended up ultimately doing that same thing to Chicago. And I would work out states out that way every week, And it was a beautiful, in other words, I was always hustling. I love money. But the drugs and alcohol got me to the point where I had absolutely no hustle. I was miserable. I was tired of detoxing, because when you don't have that in you, you're going to detox, and whoever hasn't done it yet, believe me, you don't want to do it. But for that reason, I guarantee you, most of us that I've known, people I've known, who have tried something that made them feel better than anything they ever thought they could feel like, most of them ended up with a big problem, you know. So stay away from it, man. That stuff Nancy Reagan come up with, don't say no. I think it's a stupid and silly thing, but you know what? It's true, man. Stay away from it. And other people, stay away from people that are into it. But here I am with the last thing. We're living up in Greenfield, not far from where Deli lives, on Winterburn Extension. You know, miserable. Now, we were on welfare at the time. And I would trade the food stamps for a couple of Dilaudid pills, you know. They're narcotic pills, and you shoot them. And I did it this one time. Now, the next day or 2 days later, whatever it was, one of my daughters came up to me. I'm sitting on my chair, miserable, man, getting ready to go into detox, getting ready to detox at home again. And I don't even remember which one it was, but that's not even important, really. But what she said to me, whew. Still not blinking. What she said to me was so powerful, and it moved me in a way that, I mean, it was God. She said to me, "Hey, Dad, do we have any ice cream?" Now, the day before, or 2 days before, whatever the heck it was, I traded, I think it was $83 in food stamps for 2 pills. That's where it took me. But it was a beautiful thing, ultimately now, that had happened. Because that made me take a look at myself. I hope anybody that, if you have people, relatives, friends, whatever, that are messing around out there with that dope stuff, the fentanyl, like I said, it took my daughter out. It's killing people like crazy. It's unbelievable what's going on. Amen. Just to give you an idea, my daughter died in 2019. That year, over 70,000 people died from drug overdoses in this country. Last year, it was over 108. In the whole lasted a long time. Vietnam War, we lost just a little over 58. The year my daughter died, over 70, last year in this country, over 108,000 people. We're at war, and a lot of people don't even know it. We cannot be beat militarily. I'm convinced of that. Don't get me wrong, I know China might have this and that, and Russia really showed their stuff with the Ukraine guys. But I thought they were much tougher than that. But we have weapons that we don't even know about. They can't beat us militarily. But little by little, with the lady mentioned the darkness at Pitt, that type of thing, internally, from the inside, our nation is actually rotting. Amen. I just got to blink on the light. Amen. God bless you all. God bless this church. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Bless you, brother. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we heard from everybody, and there were diverse lessons learned from each person here. And I just want to end with the salvation that Jesus has offered us that really covers all these different issues and problems. And all of us have sinned and come short of the glory of God. There's not a person sitting in this room that hasn't failed the Lord. All of us have. And as a result, God could not just take us to heaven. He's perfect. So a perfect sacrifice had to be made in our place. It might not sound too fair, but it's what the Bible speaks of as a substitution, a vicarious substitution. Jesus comes in our place and does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. He lives the perfect life, gives up his life at the cross. He does so that he might be able to take the balances of judgment and be able to equalize it so that we could be forgiven, we could go to heaven. The perfect sacrifice takes the place for all the imperfect people. And so today, if you've never received him, you need to open your heart to him. Now, we're not going to leave Jesus on the cross. He said there, it is finished, and it truly is. He also said, forgive them. They know not what they do. But then he leaves that in your court. Each person makes their own sovereign choice. We're free moral agents, and God wants us to be saved, but he will not force or compel anybody to. The devil is also quite active. As a result, we have unbelief, we have cynicism, we have skepticism. We have all kinds of things that surround us that detract from the living God. People use these as excuses for not believing. Trouble in the world, little babies that die, war, famine, all these things that God gets blamed for. But in fact, this is all the evidence of a cursed world. Now, the Lord is offering us a way out of this place, to a place where none of this can ever touch us. And so today, you're wise to receive Christ, who died on the cross but rose again. At the right hand of God, he's waiting to hear your prayer, and will save you if you call upon him. So let's pray. Lord Jesus, we are willing to call upon you. We thank you for what we heard here, the way that you have worked in various ways in people's lives. It speaks to us, Lord. We pray, Father, that if there's anyone in this room that is needful today, whose hearts are empty, they need eternal life. They need the hope of a world beyond this one. May we call upon you, Lord, in sincerity and in truth. May we, with all of our heart, believe you. And may we begin our journey of faith. Save those that need you today, Lord. We open our hearts to you, and we ask you to forgive us of our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. I would invite you to pray this with me if you're not sure of your salvation this morning. Pray these words. Father in heaven, I know I have sinned. I believe that Jesus died for those sins, and I accept him this moment. Lord Jesus, come into my heart, forgive my sins, and send me to heaven when I die. Then, Lord, help us to live for you in victory over sin by the power of your resurrection. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless all of you. Have a blessed Thanksgiving.